"Who the hell are you?" I asked, backing up from the woman. "Please," she begged, grabbing at my arm. The smell from her was more unbearable up close. "Get off me, you old hag," I yelled, pulling myself free. She shushed me loudly. Her eyes appeared wide, scanning the area with paranoia. "You want them to hear? Who will hear?" "What are you talking about?" I asked harshly. It had only been a few minutes with her, and I was already beginning to become irritated. "Them," she hissed. I could see the whites of her eyes gleam in the moonlight at her weak attempt to scare me. I shook my head unmoved. "I don't have time for this. I'm really tired and I've got to get up early. Honestly, I don't care what you do out here. But just stay away from my car. I don't want to catch you near it again or else I'll report you." "No, please don't," she begged, ready to grab at me again. However, I was able to avoid her clawing hands this time. "Fine," I shot back. "Just don't touch me again. I'm leaving now." As I turned to leave, I could see the woman's head sulk to the ground. Normally, this would have been the part where I felt sorry, but right now I didn't care. I was too tired with my mind overwhelmed with the events that had transpired throughout the day. Besides, she was clearly deranged in the head, possibly homeless, or maybe one of those people who lived off the land. I started to walk away when it hit me. I thought about what she had said earlier. I looked back to still see her eyeing the ground, almost appearing in a trance. I was reluctant to go back, but I had to know. "What did you mean, your daughter? And how did you know about the book?" I asked, approaching her. Without looking up, she answered, "My daughter. I need your help to save her." "Your daughter? Who's your daughter?" "You already know of her. Why do you ask me?" she replied, looking up at me. Her eyes relayed a look of solemn. "I need to hear it from you," I said. I was sure I knew the answer as she mentioned, but something inside me wanted to hear those words come from her. I wanted to be absolutely sure. "Say her name." "Why, it's Victoria, of course," she said softly. I shook my head in disbelief. "But how? You're her mother, but you're supposed to be. She said you died when she was just a child." "Is that what she was told you?" she scoffed. It would be like Gary to tell her such a lie. "What?" "Yes," she said stiffly. "He took her from me. When I didn't want to submit to his religion, he banished me." This couldn't be possible. Victoria's mother was dead, right? But how would I know otherwise? I did notice when I listened closely, I could hear her accent hidden behind her raspy voice. "Wait, this man you're talking about," I started. It couldn't have been the same person. "Do you mean the Reverend?" She didn't answer me immediately. Instead, her eyes wandered off into the trees beyond, but eventually her head gave a soft nod. I sighed. "Look, you said to help your daughter, and that the Reverend took her. Why didn't you just go to the police or something?" She chuckled to herself lightly, returning her eyes to mine. "You don't know these people." "I don't know anything because you're not telling me everything," I replied harshly. My impatience had elevated to annoyance. "All you need to know is that the people you think you know are liars. The Reverend is the worst of them all. They need my daughter. They made her a part of their revolting ritual. I should have never brought her here. I was so weak-minded back then. Damn them, she spat bitterly. I didn't know what to do, but then I saw you arrive. At first I was unsure what to think of you. Yet, while watching you with Victoria, I knew it would be you who would help me to do what I couldn't and take her away from all of this. It all started to come together. All those times it felt like something or someone was watching me had been her. Yet I was still confused. She hadn't really answered my question and only contributed to the pile of others. That's a lot to believe, especially about the others. They don't act the way you make them out to be. Besides, what ritual are you talking about? I asked. You're very fond of her, aren't you? She asked, ignoring my question. Of Victoria? What? I blurted out. I could feel my cheeks reddening. I'm glad that you are, she said, smiling. It does my heart good to see another care for Victoria as I do. This is the reason why I knew you'd help me. But I had to show you first of what they plan to do and what they have already done. I left that book in your room as proof. You saw it, so you now know too. I was thrown off again. I couldn't believe she was behind the placement of the book as well. Wait a second. I don't even know what I saw in that book. I couldn't even read the words. You don't need the words, you saw the pictures, didn't you? She shot back. What you saw has been done. I didn't know what to think. The images on those pages were indeed horrific. I wanted to believe, but another part didn't want to accept it. You mean to tell that what's growing in Victoria is... I couldn't finish the words. What can you expect from me then? It seems a bit too late now. There is one thing we can do, she brought up. I can dispel their ritual, stop it before it is ever completed, and that evil is born. Why haven't you done it already? Because, she began, I need access to their room of worship, and last I checked I lost my key. She held up her hand for me to see. I could make out a small stump where her ring finger used to be. What the hell? I stammered. The rings are more than show. I'm sure you know that by now. They are keys, but there is a darker secret behind them. They are also a symbol to show your the allegiance to the faith by permanently clamping onto the wearer's finger. The only way to remove it is by removing the finger entirely. When they banished me, I was so torn that I bit off my own finger. I didn't want anything on me that was associated with them. That's crazy, was all I could say. I couldn't fathom someone wanting to risk their finger or any part of their body on the basis of their faith or anything. I've heard of tattoos, but this was way beyond that. I couldn't help but picture the woman clamping down on her finger until it snapped and spitting it out. The very thought made my stomach churn. Yes, but it was only after so that I wished that I hadn't. I could have ended this nightmare years ago, yet I let my anger cloud my judgment. But you're here now, which means there is hope again. Me? I replied. I don't have a ring either, though. I know, but the others do, she said, smiling. Do you know Terence? I gritted my teeth. How could I not? The prick, I muttered. Terence is a lapdog when it comes to the Reverend and the faith, but he's too much of a pansy to wear the ring like the others. He keeps his on a necklace he wears, she continued. I've seen it, I replied, recalling the times at dinner. How am I supposed to get it if it's on him? This is where you come in perfectly. You probably don't see much of everyone throughout the day. That's because there are chores to be done to keep the place up and running. Terrence is a working man. He normally chops up wood or fetches game for the meals. When he bathes afterwards, he takes off the necklace. I know this because I used to do the sheets around the living quarters and would see his ring just lying there. That is best time to do it, for he never locks his door at that time either. If you can take his ring at that moment, bring it to me, and I'll do the rest. I bit my lip, thinking on it. I don't know. It seems a bit risky. If I get caught, I'm finished, and he'll have me sent me home instantly. Then don't get caught. You're the only one who can walk around easily. If I could do it, I would. But they'd see me on first sight. I was barely able to place the book in your room, she brought up. Please, you have to do this for Victoria. I gave off another long sigh before conceding. With that, a smile formed wider than it ever had on her face. I could see the many crooked rows of her blackened and yellow teeth. Good, she said, leaning close to me. I've been watching Terrence for a while. He's already chopped off a round of logs good for now, but he'll need to do so again. He does it every 2 days, so the day after tomorrow you'll have to make your move. As she explained, I nodded. Once I get it, how will I contact you? Where will I find you? She paused for a moment before answering. Your lamp. If you're able to get the ring, then turn your lamp on and leave it on. I'm always watching, so I'll see it. I nodded. Then what? Then bring the ring down to me and I'll conduct my ceremony in the room. At that time, I want you to get Victoria out of here. Wait, what about you? I asked. I'll be fine. I've survived this long, so don't worry about me, she answered. You should go now. We don't want anyone catching wind of you out here. Yeah, right, I agreed, turning to leave. There's one more thing I need you to do, the old woman said. What is it? I asked. I need you to promise to never mention this meeting to Victoria. She must never know you've seen me. What? I said in bewilderment. But Victoria would be thrilled to know that you're alive. I know she would, which is why she cannot know that I am, or else she will not want to leave. Now can you do that for me? I heard her voice quiver off. Her eyes became glossy in the moonlight. I swallowed hard and nodded. She returned a grateful nod and faded until I could no longer see her among the shadows. I shivered a little. The chill of the wind was finally getting to me. So I quickly ran back inside and back up to my room. The following day, I started the day early as usual for my work. Throughout it, I thought about the plan. Regardless of how I felt, I knew I had to make it work. I also knew I had to stall the overall progress of my work, so I made sure to inform Terrence that I would need a few extra days to complete it. My boss didn't pick up when I called, so I left him the message. I made up a BS excuse about needing more time to set up and ensure the system was functioning correctly. After lunch, I proceeded to head to my room to take a nap. Normally, I would have spent this time with Victoria. When I unlocked my door, I heard a grunting sound. The noise was subtle at first and appeared to be coming from the end of the hallway. I paused for a moment, unsure if I had actually heard something. I was ready to shrug it off until I heard it again, but a little louder. Curious, I made my way down the hallway, listening as I did. I stopped at the door I presumed it came from and pressed my ear up against it. I heard it again. I took my ear away. This was Victoria's door. Hesitant, I knocked on it lightly. "Hey, are you all right in there?" I asked. There was no answer. "Victoria? It's me, Marcus," I continued. I could hear rapid breathing from inside, sounding almost like hyperventilating. It didn't sound good. Frantic, I knocked on the door with a little more force. "Victoria, are you all right? What's going on in there?" I asked urgently. "Can you let me in, please?" "Go away," I heard her say in between gasps. I sighed, pressing my head softly up against the door. "Look, I understand you don't want to talk to me," I began. "And I don't blame you. I had no right to. I was a jerk back there, and I shouldn't have been prying as I did. In truth, I don't care about the baby or who the father is. I never did. I just wanted you to know that The words again failed me. I could see them in my mind, but I couldn't push them out. "I'm sorry," I forced out. I wanted to tell her something else, about how I felt about her, about everything, but the timing didn't feel right. I turned to leave, but stopped when I heard the door open behind me. She had it half cocked to allow her face to peer through. She stared at me for a moment as if analyzing my eyes for truth. Finally, she opened it fully, walking back into her room. I followed her, closing the door behind. Her room was nice. Unlike mine, which was bland and almost empty, her room was more cozy. She had a desk filled with books, some open journals, others maybe novels. Her mini dresser was complemented with a vase filled with several flowers clearly well cared for. The scent of her perfume lingered in the air. I embraced its smell, a scent I longed missed. "What was the noise I heard earlier?" I asked. I thought something was wrong. She walked over to the bed and sat, making a painful face as she did. "I'm fine," she said gravely. "It's just this bloody baby is all." I joined her on the bed. "I meant what I said out there," I began. "I don't care about it. You don't have to tell me about it at all either." She kept her gaze away from me, but I could see tears forming in her eyes. "Just shut up, Marcus," she said with a quivering lip. "Just shut it." She broke down in tears, cupping her face with her hands. I was bad at handling these kinds of moments. They always left me feeling awkward, but I gradually reached over to her shoulder to comfort her. She immediately threw herself on me, bawling her eyes out on my chest. After a good solid 5 minutes, she had finally stopped. Her eyes were reddened and her nose slightly runny. "You said your mother died when you were young," she finally said. "How did she die?" I sighed. "She was killed," I answered after a long pause. "Some guy broke into their apartment and shot her." "Marcus," she said softly. "I'm so sorry. That must have been devastating for you." "Yeah. Well, I don't remember when it happened. Like I said, I was too young." I could feel her sob a little more on my chest. "It was my father," she finally said, leaning on my shoulder. "Father?" I repeated, confused. "Yes, he did this to me," she said, looking down at her stomach. My eyes widened as I pulled away. "Your father did this? Who is he?" "Who do you think?" she said, harshly wiping her eyes. I thought about it for a second and immediately my eyes flashed. "The Reverend? Wait, the Reverend is your father?" I asked. I couldn't believe it. Her mother said he took Victoria from her but mentioned nothing of him being the father as well. Victoria nodded but then shook her head. Well, he's my stepfather. My mother met him after my real father died. If he did this, why didn't you tell anyone? Because I could not prove it. He drugged me or something, I don't know. At first I did not want to say anything, but when I started showing signs of the baby, he went on to tell everyone that it was a miracle, that it was a gift from Lanius, she explained. And like aimless sheep, they questioned nothing, taking in his poisoned words. But I knew the truth, because he was the only one else there. A few more tears fell down her cheek. I bit my lip when she said this. This part sounded all too familiar. I thought about the book and the image of the man standing with the woman, and that horrid figure behind her. Was it all true, though? She had no memory of the event. Was it possible that this sick action was all just the Reverend's doing? Regardless of which, Victoria's mother was right. These people were monsters, if not that, ignorant. At this point, I wanted to cheer her up. I thought about telling her everything about her mother, but remembered the promise I made. Instead, I lifted her chin up so that her eyes were looking into my own. I can take you away from all of this. All we have to do is jump in my car and leave. You'll never have to see this place again. I could see a mixture between happiness and fear in her eyes. But how? Where would we go? You can stay with me. I have my own place. It's safe. Trust me. Marcus? She spoke softly. A smile gradually formed on her lips. Yes, let's do it, she said, rendering me a tight hug. We should leave tonight. Tonight? I repeated. Yes, after dinner. Any earlier, and they'll become suspicious. They always hold their sermons late at night, which gives us enough time between then. We can leave then. I looked away, trying to find a way to convey my thoughts. I didn't want to reveal the plan or her mother. What's wrong, Marcus? How about tomorrow night? I suggested. Tomorrow? Why? Why do we have to stay here another day? Let's leave tonight. No, it has to be tomorrow night. I quickly shot back without thinking. Marcus, I don't understand. Is there something you're not telling me? I placed my hands on her shoulders, firmly looking her in the eyes. Look, you have to trust me. I have a plan with a friend. They're willing to help, but it has to be tomorrow, okay? Her eyes were full of so much confusion. I knew she thirsted for answers, but luckily she simply nodded. Okay, I trust you. For a second, we began to lean in for a kiss when we were both startled by an abrupt knocking at the door. I answered it to discover Sophia on the other side. Mr. Pale, she said surprisingly. We were beginning to worry about you when we didn't find you in your workspace. Her eyes shifted their gaze between me and Victoria. I trust I wasn't interrupting anything. No, I said, trying to maintain my composure. I was just checking on Victoria. I turned back to give her a wave and slid past Sophia. Heading down, I glanced down the hall to still see her in Victoria's doorway. I didn't want to arouse suspicion, so I continued on and back to the room I was working in. I was glad I had patched things up with Victoria. The feeling helped ease my thoughts on the plan. I wondered if we could really pull it off. Leaving the place was one thing, But stealing the ring from that jerk was another. Something broke this mood, though. I was heading back to continue my work when I caught sight of Terrence walking outside with an axe over his shoulder. That was strange. There was probably nothing to worry about. The old woman said he chopped every 2 days. He would still need to do it tomorrow. He probably needed it for something else, I assured myself, though the thought wasn't that very reassuring. I decided to keep my eye on him while I worked just in case. I looked towards the trees, hoping to maybe catch sight of the old woman, but didn't see anything. I didn't actually believe I would see her since she had been able to keep herself invisible for years. I was sure, though, that she too was watching everything. I continued working until Sophia came to me. She informed me that my boss had called and was waiting on the phone. Great, perfect timing as always, I thought grumpily. What did he want anyway? She led me back to the phone where I found it sitting off the hook on its side. Apparently, he was following up on the message I left and wanted to ensure I was making progress. I told him that I would have everything up soon, hoping to end the phone call quickly. I noticed the small window in the room and peered out it, stretching the phone line as I did. I gazed out, and to my horror I saw Terrence making his way back. His shirt was fully soaked in sweat while he was pushing a wheelbarrow full of chopped logs. After dumping the logs off, he made his way around to the front. I felt my heart leap into my throat. In my ear, I could hear my boss go on into another one of his speeches about representing the company. Fuck the company right now, I thought. I had a small window of opportunity, and I was about to miss it. We were completely wrong. I could already hear Terrence slam the front door and proceed to the stairs. I quickly thought of a way to let my boss allow me to hang up, lying that one of the clients had asked for my help. Once over, I raced out the room, nearly smacking into Margaret on the way. "Goodness me, you're running as if a fire spurred," she exclaimed. I apologized frantically, my eyes looking down the hallway behind her. "Is everything all right, dear?" she asked with a puzzled look. "Yeah," I lied. "I just need to use the bathroom really bad." "Oh, I shouldn't keep you," she replied, holding a hand up to her mouth. I thanked her and raced towards the stairs, stopping immediately before reaching the top. I cautiously peeked down the hallway. No one was in sight. Where was he? Was he still in his room? Or did he already enter the bathroom? I crept up the last remaining steps slowly, eventually making my way down the hall. I could hear the sound of water running in the background. Yes, he was in the shower. But for how long? Knowing I didn't have much time, I sped up my pace until I reached his door. I opened it quickly, shutting it behind me. Surprisingly, his room was a lot like mine. There wasn't much in it. It was bland and almost empty. Anything he did have, like books, were nicely organized in its place. I began looking around, making sure to return anything I moved back to its original place. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. Every sound I heard, whether creak or thump, I associated it with it being Terrence. It felt like my senses had amplified. I found myself constantly looking towards the door in paranoia, thinking he could barge through at any minute. I looked through his dresser and all around his bookcase, but found nothing. I started searching the desk, pulling open drawers to see inside. When I opened that last drawer, I froze. Inside, I could make out a familiar object, a gun. It was a revolver. I didn't know the specifics, but it had a very long barrel. I could see the dust that had formed over it. Clearly, it hadn't been touched in a while. I shut the drawer and continued searching around. In the end, I couldn't believe it. The ring wasn't here. How could that be? I wanted to check over everything again, but a feeling inside urged me to leave. I listened to it and left the room, gently closing its door behind me. I started to head back to my room until I heard a voice call out. "Oi!" I heard, freezing my nerves. I almost shouted in complete terror out of the shock. I turned to see a half-robed Terrence dripping in the hallway. A towel was wrapped around his waist, soaking up what little water dripped from his wet body. His sweaty clothes were tightly gripped in a ball in one hand, while the other held his shoes. "What are doing down here?" he asked sternly. My heart was now knocking against my chest as if wanting to burst out. "I just needed to use the bathroom," I lied. "I didn't realize someone was in it until I got down the hall." Terrence squinted hard at me as if trying to figure me out, but finally gestured to the bathroom with his head. "Well, it's free now," he said. I thanked him and made my way past him. I pushed open the door to the small bathroom, and immediately my eyes lit up. There, sitting on the sink, was the necklace with the ring attached. He had it with him all along. I was close to reaching for it until I heard someone behind me. "There's the blasted thing," Terrence said, moving past me and grabbing it. "It's all you're for real now," he said and left. I couldn't believe it. The plan had failed. I wanted to punch a wall or something, even scream out loud. Yet when I really thought about it, there was no chance of getting away with it freely. Even if he had left it in his room, he would have immediately noticed. There wouldn't have been enough time to give it the old woman and leave with Victoria, especially if we planned to leave in the evening. I sighed and began my long walk of defeat back. What could I tell the old woman now? We didn't have an alternate plan. I continued, heading downstairs, and decided to get back to work. Maybe I could think of something while I did so. Dinner eventually came by, and still I had no idea what to do. I was sure the old woman had seen my lamp was still off to relay the failure of the plan. I wondered if she would possibly come up with a solution of her own. "Marcus, how far along are you with your work?" Margaret inquired, pulling me from my thoughts. I heard there were minor delays. "Well, I should have everything up and running by tomorrow," I answered. "Oh, there's a dreadful thought. We're going to miss having you around. You're almost like a member of the family now," she said, giving off an unsettling giggle. "I've actually been meaning to ask why you needed this service anyway. It doesn't seem like you really need it," I brought up. "On the contrary, my boy," the Reverend spoke. "Our faith is a rare breed, but that doesn't mean there aren't any other inspiring souls out there. We want to be able to reach any and all potential followers. With your help, we can do that and upload our sermons for all to see." "Oh, okay," I said weakly. The mere thought of them uploading footage of them worshiping made me feel uneasy. "Plus, it brought you to us, Marcus. Having a young lad such as yourself has truly been a pleasure," he continued. I smiled sheepishly and glanced over to Victoria. She appeared to be squinting in pain. "Are you all right, my dear?" Margaret asked when she caught sight of this too. Victoria appeared to be suppressing the pain. "Yes," she answered. "I think I just need to lie down for the evening." "Do you need any help?" Sophia offered. "No, I'll be fine. Please, there is no need to worry about me," she said, excusing herself from the table. "I just need to rest." I could see her gripping her stomach as she did. I wanted to leave the table as well, but my legs remained frozen, numb to the commands from my brain. I just sat there watching her leave. For some reason, I could not shake the feeling of discomfort. After dinner, I made my way back to my room. In the hallway, I glanced down towards Victoria's door. What were we going to now? The plan had failed, and tomorrow was the day I promised would be our last here. I entered my room, almost slamming it shut. I could feel tears of anger growing in my eyes. Why did it all have to go to hell? Why did that bastard have to ruin everything? And why? Why did I have to fuck it up so badly? I must have eventually passed out from my rage fit, because I was soon awakened by the sound of voices and footsteps. The footsteps sounded urgent, rushing from one end of the hallway to the next. Without warning, a blood-curdling wail filled the air. It grew so loud that I had to put my hands over my ears. It sounded like a woman's voice. Victoria's. I raced to my door, ready to rip it open, but immediately I stopped myself. I could hear a sound worse than her wail. It was so eerie and frightening that it sent an icy chill down my spine. What I heard was the low chanting of voices. They spoke in unison, reciting words I couldn't comprehend. I could see a dim light flicker across the door's bottom crack. While it did, I could hear Victoria's moans of pain. The voices grew louder, passing by my door, eventually fading into the distance. I cracked open my door to look out, which let out its signature creak. I was sure it would alert them, and halted it in mid-swing. I could see the hallway was still quiet. I opened the door fully, taking a step outside. It was dark and absent of light. Under my shoe, I felt something wet. I took out my phone and used the backlight to get a better view. It was some kind of liquid, maybe water. I was ready to believe this thought until I accidentally dropped my phone in it. I quickly grabbed it in a panic, wiping it off, but the liquid seemed to only smear. I took my phone back into my room to see it better in the light. It wasn't water. It was blood. My heart skipped at the realization of this. I went back in the hallway, using my phone's light again over the liquid. I could make out more of it leading to the stairs. The other end of the hallway showed the trail lead back to Victoria's room, which had its light on. I swallowed hard and walked towards it, trying to mentally prepare myself for the worst. I reached it and slowly edged my way in. There was blood everywhere. A trail of it ran from the door up to her bed. The sheets were completely doused in red. I could smell her perfume mixed with smoke and the metallic smell of blood. I felt my stomach give in at the sight. Immediately, I vomited all that I had eaten. I felt my knees weaken and give away as well, falling to the ground and dropping my phone in the process. I must have blackened out for a few seconds before regaining awareness. When I regained consciousness, I noticed my phone's backlight about to turn to black. I quickly got up, horrified that I had been laying next to blood. What had happened in here? I grabbed my phone and glanced at the bed. A puddle of red soaked the lower half of the sheets. However, I noticed there was another spot, much smaller, forming near her pillow. I slowly reached for it, unsure what I was about to see. I couldn't imagine anything worse, but I was wrong. To my dismay, I found a finger. It was clearly cut off, with the tip of its bone sticking out of the red-covered flesh. It appeared to be Victoria's. It had to have been. Next to the finger was a small knife with its tip covered in blood. Why did she cut it off? I observed the finger closer and realized the ring doused in red. She had cut off her finger so that I would have it. The key to the congregation room. She must have done so out of desperation. I thought about the pain she had shown from her contractions at dinner. She must have felt it was time for the child. Those sick bastards were going through with their ritual. They didn't care about Victoria. The old woman was right. I had to do something. I promised her that I would get her out of here, and I was going to keep it. I hesitantly picked up the finger. It was still warm, and placed it in my pocket with care. Racing out of the room, I came to a stop when I remembered the gun kept by Terence. It was something I was probably going to need. His door was locked when I tried to open it, but I didn't care. I didn't have time to waste, and began kicking it until the handle caved in. I pushed it open, running to the desk drawer where I had last seen the gun. I opened it and smiled. It was still there. I grabbed it, feeling its weight fall into my hand. With my thumb, I popped its wheel open to reveal 6 bullets lined in their chambers. Perfect, I thought, and tucked it in the back of my pants and then ran out the room. I got to the bottom of the stairs and noticed that the lobby was dark, the scent of candles in the air. The trail of blood from earlier could be seen leading to the congregation room. I pressed my ear up against the double doors to listen. It was silent. No voices or wails from Victoria. Something wasn't right. I tried the handle only to find it locked, as it always was. I reached into my pocket, pulling out the finger. I checked for the small indent on the door, placed it up against it, and twisted it to the right, the way I remembered Victoria doing so. Instantly, there was a soft click from the door. I pulled at the handle again and could feel the door move. This was it. I placed the finger back in my pocket and peeked through the small crack. All I could see was darkness. I opened the door wider and was met with a warm breeze to my face. With it opened, I could see a dim light flickering from the sides. I poked my head in first before completely entering. The light was coming from the candles mounted on columns near the walls. With it, I could make out the room even more than I had the first time. The entire area looked older in the light. The walls appeared worn out and decayed, almost blackened as if burned. The columns appeared ancient in nature, broiled with cracks and fungus throughout. A deep scent of ash and moisture filled the air. I could now see the seating hues were carved from stone similar to the columns. A few were split in areas, almost falling apart. The place looked like it had been there for centuries. The building must have been built around it. In the corner of my eye, I caught sight of a dark figure off to the side. The candlelight flickered across it, producing a vague outline of it. I swallowed hard, peering towards the thing with frightened eyes. Something was there, and it was watching me. "Hello?" I called out softly to it. I could feel every hair standing up on my neck. "Hello?" I said again, my voice quivering. The figure gave no answer in return. I slowly walked to it, watching as the light flickered across it. With the distance closing between us, I could see its pale face in the light. My heart plummeted. Empty black holes were present where its eyes were supposed to be. The mouth of it was gaped wide open, almost like it was screaming in terror, but no noise came out. I was ready to bolt out of there until I noticed that it did nothing. It didn't even move. Cautiously, I approached the figure with my hand stretched out. I eased cautiously, half expecting it to lash out at me at any moment. Finally, I touched its surface. When I did, I took a deep sigh of relief. It was only a mask. I picked it up, revealing its disturbing features even more up close. I looked back at the wall to see the figure was in fact a black cloak of some kind. I pulled it off, releasing it from the hook. and brought both objects into the light. It was a cloak and mask, all right, thank goodness. Was this what they wore for their ceremonies? I looked back at the wall to see several other empty hooks lined up. Glancing back at the cloak, I noticed a faded image running across it. It was a symbol, but not like the one on the door. I recognized this one, though. It was an inverted cross. It had chains attached as well, hanging from its waistline. It must have been Victoria's. Without warning, I was startled by the faint echo of a woman's wails. It was coming from further back in the room. I followed the noise, which brought me up to the altar. At the top, I could make out a familiar sight behind the podium. It was the statue from before, still horrid to the eyes as ever. As I climbed the stairs, the image of the statue became more apparent. It still brought an eerie feeling to me, right down to my bones. I couldn't stand the sight of it and looked away as I passed it. Behind it, I saw the mouth of a cave. Reaching it, I could see it stretch deep down into the darkness. It was dimly lit by a few candles mounted on its walls. Stone steps descended with it. I could feel a warm breeze flowing from it like the breath of a large beast. Every so often, a wail would echo from its depths, sending my heart into its own depths with it. This was crazy. How could all of this be in here? It was clear that all of it, was way over my head. I wanted to turn around. God knows I wanted to. But with each wail, I thought of Victoria. I couldn't leave her to suffer. I glanced down at my hands to discover that I was still holding the cloak and the mask. It was a long shot, but I thought if I wore it, it would help me blend in. Even if it bought me only a few minutes, I could use whatever edge I could get. I threw on the cloak and placed the mask over my face. I took one last breath and began making my descent. The stairs felt like they would never end. I pressed onward, though, passing by one of the mounted candles ever so often. In between them, I was left in utter darkness, at the whim of my own footing. I took my time walking down them, adding to the anxiety to reach the bottom. Voices began to echo from the abyss below, bouncing off the walls. Once again, I could hear their monotone words being spoken in unison, still incomprehensible to me. In the darkness, the words were even more nerve-wracking. It almost didn't sound human. The last of the stairs brought me to a large chasm. A few candles were mounted on these walls as well, but they weren't of much help. I could see their light reveal a set of different tunnels pointing in diverse directions. From here, it looked like I had to choose a path. But which one was right? If I chose wrong, I knew it would be nearly impossible to retrace my steps, especially in this darkness. The voices from earlier began to echo once again. Among the cave walls, they bounced all around, amplified by the acoustics. I focused on the sound, trying to pinpoint their origin. Finally, after several minutes, I was able to determine that they were coming from the tunnel on the left, so I headed in that direction. The tunnel was completely dark, absent of candles. A few times I tripped on the rocky surface, but using the walls helped maintain my balance. It continued to stretch onward. All I could see was an endless void in front of me. As I walked, I felt the urge to stop, feeling as if I would smack into a wall or something. All the while, the voices continued their chanting, growing louder the more I pushed forward. Finally, I reached an opening. It was glowing, all the while, producing a wave of heat. I came to a rocky perch. On the side, I could see another set of stone stairs curve down to the area below. I didn't need to take them because the best gave a good overview of everything below. I crouched and moved closer to get a better view. What I saw would forever be burned in my mind. Below, I could see 4 individuals standing in a square formation, each facing inward. 4 bowls containing an intense fire was set in between each of the individuals, forming together some sort of a diamond. There were markings in red producing an arrangement of symbols and designs behind each of the figures. I noticed how all of them donned the same cloak and mask as I was wearing. Each of them was slowly bobbing their heads, their hands clasped as if in prayer, except one. The one was holding up a camcorder to film it all. Standing in the center, I saw a 5th person. This one wore a different cloak. It was pale white and more loosely fit than the others. The mask worn was black instead of white, almost as dark as the tunnel itself. If not for the light from the bowls, it would have looked like a faceless being. It had to be the Reverend. Each time he spoke out that strange language, the others would repeat it in unison. My eyes widened when I saw what was behind the Reverend. There was a stone table covered with a white sheet, and on it I saw Victoria, clenching her stomach in pain. Every so often she would let out an intense wail that filled the air. The white sheet underneath her was half soaked in blood. Now what? I didn't know what to do now that I was here. Without warning, I was pulled from my thoughts when I felt something touch my shoulder. I spun around, almost screaming out loud. However, my eyes recognized the figure crouching behind me. It was the old woman, Victoria's mother. She had followed me down here. She held up a finger to her lip and slowly crept past me to look below. "We must stop this before it's too late," she whispered over her shoulder. "How?" I asked. "What can we do? We can't just rush down there without some sort of plan." She nodded in agreement. "I know. We need to sprinkle this within their inner circle," she said, pulling out a small glass vial. It was filled with a clear liquid. "At the stage she's in now, Victoria will need some of this on her as well." "That's it?" I asked sourly. "That's the plan?" "Yes," she replied, returning her gaze below. "Once this is sprinkled, I will need to recite my own incantation to cancel out the effects of their ritual. Only then will Victoria be saved and the rest of the world." I shivered a little. "The world? You never did mention what would happen if that child was born," I inquired. "Nothing good, I assure you, but that will not happen," she answered. "Listen, I have a plan." I was all ears to hearing it and leaned close. "We need to draw them away from here so that I can conduct the incantation." "How are we going to do that?" "A distraction, of course," she replied, producing a twisted smile. "We'll need their undivided attention. I need to conduct the ceremony, so for that, we have to lead them away." I sighed deeply. I really didn't like this plan already, but it seemed like the only other option. After taking a few breaths, I stood up to announce my presence. "Hey!" I yelled out. It was all I could think to say. Immediately they went silent below, staring up at me. The light bounced off the faces of their twisted masks. Not one said a word until the Reverend spoke out. "Ah, Marcus, is that you?" he asked out loud. "What a surprise it is to see you down here." "What the hell is going on here?" I stammered. "What are you fucks doing with Victoria? You bastards better let her go or I'll get the police involved." The Reverend chuckled, his mask bouncing a little. "Marcus," he said softly, almost in a jokingly manner. "When you first arrived, I will admit I thought I understood everything about you, just from our first conversation. At the time, you looked like nothing more but a stammering piglet that had gone astray. You couldn't even get your words right. I could see the others slowly moving away from their spots, edging their way to the stairs. But then you surprised me with your bold antics. You sneaked into our congregation room, attempted to steal one of my members' rings. Yes, I know about that, he continued. My eyes lit up. How could he have known? You even warmed up to Victoria, convincing her to leave all this and her family behind, he finished. Now that my boy is something. Tell me, I know you're sick of seeing everyone suffer, like your grandfather, or even your mother that passed away when you were young. I was dumbstruck. How did he know all of this? He couldn't have. He continued. All those people out there in the world as well, suffering, doing so unnecessarily. And for what reason? But for what he wants, he said, pointing upward. With Lanius, though, we can reshape this world. He'll reshape everything in his image and erase all that pain and all that suffering. Everything will be set right, the way it should be. Why not be willing to join him in this transformation? I could see the other members drawing closer up the stairs. Think about it, Marcus. Are we really that bad of people? Look at yourself. What have you really believed in that you could hold on to? He continued. Join us down here. Be a part of that new world, a new direction. You're already halfway there. You've got what you need on you right now. So why not come down the path fully? He said, lifting his hands up. Victoria's suffering right now, but when this all over, she won't anymore. You can even be with her in the new world. It's what you want, isn't it? My eyes glanced over at Victoria, still gasping in pain, her eyes clenched painfully shut. I listened as she let out another horrific wail. I could an impression of something moving around in her, pressing upward against her skin. My voice was lost. I was unable to say anything. This bastard was crazy. They all were. However, if that was truly the case, why was I so hesitant? Was there a part of me that wanted this, that believed in this? Immediately, the old woman stood up to reveal herself too. Poisonous words never fail to excrete from your mouth, you sniveling snake, she hissed at him. Who is that up there with you, Marcus? He asked calmly. Who do you think, you foul bastard? She barked. Carolina? He said, surprised. I must admit, I am a bit shocked to see you still living. I must ask how you managed to escape the gaze of Lanius. Wouldn't you like to know? You're not the only one who can conjure up a spell or two, she snapped. Right, he said unfazed. You always were an unpredictable one, Carolina. I truly was heartbroken when I learned you weren't fully on board with us. She scoffed at this. So, Marcus, what will it be? He asked, returning his attention to me. I glanced over to see the old woman's eyes gleaming at me from the shadows. She shook her head in dismay, mouthing something softly. I couldn't hear the words, but I could make out the last word escaping her lips. Lies? No, I said softly. Come again? The Reverend asked. I said no, you satanic fucks. He sighed, dropping his arms. That's too bad, son. He gestured with his head to the others, who immediately sprang up the stairs. Move it, the old woman yelled, bolting down the tunnel we had entered from. I was surprised she was even able to move at such speed. Without wasting time, I quickly hurried behind her. I could hear their footsteps echoing following us. I didn't know where I was going. There nothing but endless void before me. I felt my feet trip again a few times as I went. My lungs were burning, begging me to stop, but the adrenaline pumping through me must have kept me going. Eventually, we reached the original chasm with all the tunnels. We need to split them up. Try to lose them in the best manner you can, she said in deep breaths. I was half out of breath myself, barely catching what she said. Without hesitation, she ran off to the tunnel on the left. I took the hint and darted down the nearest one to my right. On the inside, I hoped that I had not chosen one with a dead end. The tunnel itself was very tight. I felt the sharp edges of the walls scrape against my arms a few times, but I pressed onward. Thinking quickly, I pulled out my phone using its light to help guide the way. Ahead of me, my eyes made out what I had dreaded would happen. I had reached a dead end. Shit! I yelled out. There was no way I could turn around, not if they were following me. However, I was surprised to find that the wall wasn't like the tunnel's uneven texture. Looking closer, it appeared to be a type of door. It was still made of stone, but it was smooth and had markings engraved along it. I couldn't make them out, but the phone on my light revealed a familiar sight. I could see a small indent with a symbol etched within. It was similar to that of the one for the congregation room's doors. The finger, I thought out loud. I reached in my pocket trying to find it. Behind me, I could hear the clapping of footsteps gaining on me. I struggled to pull the damn thing out. When I did, I pressed it up against the indent and twisted. At first, nothing happened, but soon the door began to move. A loud moan was produced from it as it lifted slowly upwards. I could hear the footsteps getting closer, but the door was still at my ankles. I yelled and cursed at the damn thing to hurry, until at last it was up to my chest. It was good enough for me. I was ready to bolt through the opening, when suddenly I was tackled from behind. The force from the tackle sent me forward along with my attacker. We both rolled into the room, sliding away from each other. I landed crudely, banging my knee and elbow in the process. It wasn't until I looked up that I caught the scent of something putrid in the air. The room we had entered was colder than the other areas and seemed to be darker. My impaired vision must have amplified my sense of smell, because I was completely appalled by it. It was as if something had been decaying, or rather many things had. Under my hand, I felt something hard poke me. I couldn't see the object clearly, but I felt how smooth it was, almost too perfect. Around it, I felt other objects with the same feeling. I wanted to use my cell phone, but I couldn't find it, clearly dropped from the fall. I did, however, hear a man grunting, apparently my attacker. "Ya little shit. I knew you'd be trouble from the start," I heard him say. The voice sounded like Terrence. I could hear him standing up. His breathing was still rapid from the chase. My heart leapt into my throat. I tried to be extra careful while I rose to my feet, hoping to not draw his attention. If he was like me, then it was impossible to see anything in this darkness. If quiet enough, I could probably sneak past him. I started moving forward, taking small steps while I listened for him. The Reverend told me about the ring. "You thought we're slick about it all, huh?" He yelled out. His voice echoed. "You see, the Reverend knows all and sees all." I could hear his footsteps pacing around. The acoustics of the room made it hard to pinpoint his exact position. "Then you stole one of our tomes, but I found it," he continued. I was glad you did, though. You got to see what's coming to that bitch. I hope you enjoyed every last of it," he said, chuckling. I don't know what came over me after that. After hearing those disgusting words, I somehow managed to find and pounce on Terrence in an immense rage. I didn't hesitate and swung where I thought his head was, striking a hard surface. I yelled out in pain. It was his mask that I struck. He laughed, rendering a strong blow into my stomach. I felt the wind painfully rip its way from my mouth. Afterwards, he pushed me away, which sent me falling on my back. I felt the sting from something hard press itself against beneath me. I reached behind for the object and my eyes lit up. Immediately after, his hands grabbed at my legs to pull me close. Still in pain, I kicked at him and pulled out the object from below. I cocked it, aimed in his direction, and pulled the trigger. A flash of light lit up the entire area for a split second, followed by a loud bang. The noise echoed throughout the chasm and beyond. That flash of light was enough for me to locate my phone. I grabbed at it, pushed a button, and aimed it in front of me. I could see Terrence in the illumination gripping his arm in pain. The blood from his wound dripped to the ground. "You little," he started, but croaked in pain. The gun shook in my hand. This was the first time I had ever shot one before, let alone at a person. I didn't get time to decide what to do next. There was a deep growl that filled the air and echoed all around us. The ground almost felt like it was trembling. Further back in the room, I could hear something twisting around. Its movements were crackly and heavy. The odor from earlier grew stronger, flooding my nose even more than before. "Shit, it's awake," I heard Terrence scream out. He turned to leave, yet before I could even blink, I felt a large rush of wind race past me. The smell of its odor lingered behind it. Whatever it was fast, and it was huge. The next thing I heard was it pounding on Terrence. I could hear it ripping into him and tearing pieces apart. His screams flooded the air, a blood-curdling shrill so intense that it drew tears from my eyes. I could hear the thing continue to tear at him, cracking bones as it did. Somehow, I managed to find the feeling in my legs and bolted out of the room. Behind me, I heard the thing let out a frightening roar. I didn't stop running, though, pushing as hard I could through the tight walls. I could hear its heavy footsteps pounding behind me. The snarls from its breathing grew closer in my ear. It was gaining quickly. Without thinking, I aimed the gun behind me and fired off a few rounds. It wasn't until after the third round that I heard another loud roar. The footsteps behind immediately came to a halt. I continued running until I reached the open area once again. I was out of breath, but I knew I couldn't stop. That thing was sure to continue its pursuit soon, so I couldn't waste any time. Before I could fully gain my composure, I heard footsteps heading in my direction. They weren't from the tunnel behind me, but ahead. I quickly readied my gun, ready to fire again. 3 figures emerged from the darkness, racing frantically. It was the other church members. I had already fired 4 bullets, which meant I only had 2 left. There were 3 of them, so I would have to decide carefully who I wanted to shoot. They came to a halt in front of me. "Hello, Marcus." I heard Margaret's voice speak out from the 3. "Have you finally stopped running?" "Back the fuck off," I yelled, the gun still pointing at them. "If I have to, I will kill you crazy bastards." I heard one of them giggle. It must have been Sophia. They slowly began edging their way towards me. I backed up a little, keeping the gun trained on them. I started to shift to the side, hoping to align the next tunnel to my back. It was clear this gun was doing nothing for me. I probably would only have enough time to shoot one before the others rushed in. I would need to be quick so I could make a run for it. Come now, Marcus. Have you realized it yet? You really think we invited you all the way out here just to install some silly computers? Margaret began. I was stunned when I heard this. What the hell are you talking about? Why else would I be here? She chuckled. We needed a legitimate reason to get you out here, and here you are. You don't even know who I am, I said. She was clearly talking nonsense. Is that what you think? I'm surprised none of this appears familiar to you. You have, after all, been down this path before, she continued. My hand slowly lowered the gun. I don't know why, but a small portion of me believed, even if it did sound ludicrous. What do you mean? It's Lanius. He's always had a fascination with you, she answered. Something about you. She started to say, but trailed in her words. What about me? I demanded. Before she could answer, a large figure bolted from the shadows, pouncing on Margaret. It was that horrid creature from earlier. It had caught up. Now, among the dim candlelight, I could make out more of its features. I really wish those candles weren't there. Through the poor lighting, I could see its thin, elongated arms with sharp talons for fingers. Massive horns extended from its back. Its loose, wild hair fell across its crude snout of a face. Its blood-colored eyes glowed, piercing the darkness. I watched as it began tearing into Margaret as it had Terence. With each new sound of splitting flesh came a louder shrill from her. Her loud cries bounced off the walls, extending throughout the tunnels. The others attempted to flee, but they didn't get far. The creature was merciless, pouncing on them and tearing into them in the same manner. Suddenly, I felt a harsh tug on my arm pulling me down the tunnel behind. It was the old woman. I didn't know where she came from, but I didn't question her. The tormenting screams of the others continued to resonate in the air. The burning pain in my lungs returned as we turned and ran. The old woman yelled back not to stop. I could hear the struggle in her voice as well to maintain the pace. There seemed to be no end to the tunnel. It felt like we were running in place, making no progress. In the midst of my exhaustion, I felt my foot drag, causing me to lose my balance. I fell hard, slamming onto my already injured knee. Get up now. The old woman screamed at me. I tried but struggled to do so, caught in the blend of pain and exhaustion. I tried to pull myself up using the wall. Behind me, I could hear the rapid thumping of large footsteps once again. I could feel the old woman help me up. She threw my arm over her shoulder and began assisting me forward. However, it was too late. We could feel the gaze emanating from the creature behind us. Our eyes must have fully adjusted in the dark, because I could clearly make out its massive form. Its hot breath blew across our faces, the smell of fresh blood lingering in it. The old woman pushed me away. Run now, she said softly. What? I replied in shock. No, we have to stick together. No, you must go. I will hold it off, she stated firmly. But I started. Go, she roared. Her voice startled me. I quickly turned and began hobbling away. Behind me, I could still hear her. You foul demon. You think you've won? She stated. The creature rendered a harsh snarl in return. I could hear her begin to recite strange words in another language. The creature sounded affected, screaming loud roars of pain. Whatever she was saying, it was clearly working. I paused to look back, just making out their faint outlines in the dark. I wondered if what she was doing was actually going to stop it. However, I saw the creature swing one of its long arms at her. Her body flew against the wall, producing a sickening crack. Her words instantly died. Not long after, I could hear the thing ripping away at her. The blow must have been enough to kill her because she didn't yell in pain. I went from hopping aggressively on one foot to a full-fledged run. I ignored the pain from my knee, feeling fear and adrenaline engulfing me. Up ahead, I could see a light from the end. I knew I didn't have much time until that thing would continue its pursuit for me. I reached the opening, revealing the original ritual area I had first come across. I was hesitant in approaching the perch, but I did so, looking down. Victoria was still down there. Based on her increased wails, it wouldn't be long before she gave birth. I saw no trace of the Reverend. I made my way down the stairs, approaching the symbols surrounding Victoria. Up close, I could tell they were made from blood. The bowls were still blazing. The heat from them was intense, forcing sweat down my face. When I approached Victory, her eyes fell upon me. I could see the fear returning in them. "Stay the fuck away from me," she yelled, struggling with words. I was taken back at this, but then I remembered I was still wearing the mask. I quickly removed it and was relieved to see her eyes light up upon seeing my face. "Marcus," she gasped. "Yeah, I'm here, Victoria," I answered, rushing to her side. Tears formed in her eyes. "Marcus, please." She stopped in mid-sentence, rendering another wail. She continued screaming. I could hear her vocals become rasped from the strain. I didn't know what to do. A massive lump moved around her stomach uncontrollably, pressing up against her skin. I didn't think it was possible, but her screams grew even louder. I felt completely useless right now. Just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, I heard a familiar roar from above. The creature from earlier had returned. I could see its burning red eyes beaming down from the perch. It leapt from the top, landing with a loud thud. Its disturbing form was hunched over, breathing a rapid rhythm, exalting a snarl in between. Now fully in the light, I felt my stomach tighten at its appearance. The thought of the statue came to my mind. This thing was almost a spitting image of it, but only worse. Its face was more disturbing in person, with its blackened humanoid dog features. The nose atop its snout appeared caved in, flaring with its breathing. Its eyes were beady, completely dyed a crimson red. Atop its forehead, it held a large closed eye. I stood in between Victoria and the beast. I wasn't going to let this thing do anything to her. I raised the gun up, ready to fire, waiting for it to make a move. Yet, that was it. It did nothing. It just stood there, breathing. "Come on," I yelled, trying to provoke it. "Do it. Come at me, you sick fuck." It did nothing still. Instead, the edge of its lips curled up into a twisted smile. I felt a shiver roll down my spine. The damn thing was smiling at me. I was ready to fire the gun, but then I noticed the bullet holes on it from where it had been previously hit. 2 of the bullets had managed to hit it, but they stuck out of its wounds, barely penetrating it. It was useless. The gun did nothing to it. Realizing this, I lowered it, eventually letting it drop to the ground. When I did, its smile grew wider. "What the hell are you?" I asked. "That, my boy," I heard the Reverend's voice answer out loud, "is Lanius, the white eye of time." I could hear it behind me, but I didn't dare break my eyes away from the creature. "He will become this world's new master," he continued. I was speechless. "Ya will witness his rebirth into this world, Marcus. He will reshape it in his image. Now, witness it," the Reverend went on. As if on cue, the creature began to roar into the air. I could see the rows of its blood-covered teeth extend deep back into its throat. It felt as if the whole room was rumbling. Suddenly it collapsed onto the ground, lying motionless. I was confused. Did it just die? If it did, what killed it? Victoria broke the silence, screaming at a level a human shouldn't have possibly reached. The form within her moved around vigorously, eventually tearing its way free. Blood flew in all directions, some splattering across me. My eyes turned to see a blood-soaked creature wallowing around in the remains of Victoria. It looked to be the size of a dog. I could see the sharp talons from one of its lanky arms cling to the side of the table. Curling horns protruded from its head, entangled in the wild strands of its hair. It sniffed the air for a while before turning its attention to me. I felt tears forming in my eyes. Immediately, I felt my stomach give in, hurling to the side. It hurt because I had already done so earlier, and there was nothing left to give. Leaning over the mess I produced, I could only think of one thing. "Victoria," I whispered. In the end, I couldn't do anything but watch her suffer. She trusted me to save her, and I failed her. The creature looked like a miniature version of its previous self. However, its third eye was open this time. It was completely white, void of pupil, blinking asynchronously to its smaller ones. Despite having no pupil, I could feel its white eye gazing upon me. My head began buzzing, starting as a simple vibration. The vibration escalated into an immense outpour of pain. I could see images in my head. They were images of places in the world, of people. The people were screaming for their lives. The sky above them was black, the streets littered with thousands of bodies lying lifeless and torn to pieces. Fires were brewing over damaged cars with half-burnt corpses sitting in their seats. Faces of horrendous beings, too atrocious to describe, were seen everywhere, tearing away at those unable to escape. The images flooded my head. I was at the mercy of them. As the pain increased, the more they appeared. Tears fell endlessly from my eyes. Why was I being shown these horrible things? Just when I thought I couldn't take any more, they stopped. I slumped over, still feeling my head throb. I could still see their faces, hear their screams. "Did you see it, Marcus? Did you see the dream he produced in your mind?" the Reverend asked. He walked from the shadows into the light. He slowly removed the mask from his face. What the hell was that?" I asked. I could still feel lingering amounts of the pain. It took many years to prepare this revitalization. First, he had to get stronger, and to do so he needed a vessel to use. I too was frightened when I first laid eyes upon him, but he showed me his intentions. From then I was enlightened, he explained. He speaks to me with his white eye. That's how I knew everything about you back there. I'm sure he gave you a glimpse of the paradise to be, he continued, walking up to me. Paradise? I repeated, still in a daze. Is that what the fuck you're calling that? Yes. Lanius will reshape this world into his image. Imagine sweet blue skies, endless green pastures with trees flowing abundantly with scrumptious fruit. No more pain, no more suffering. A true renewed Eden. I know it's hard to conceive all of this. How could we in the current world we live in? His power is beyond our understanding, but it can open the ripples of time. He can alter what he likes, insert what he likes. With it, he can return to the past of the vessel he chooses. Each time, he possesses the younger self, growing with them until they become of age. Doing it repeatedly makes him stronger. When he finally reaches fruition, he needs to be born of human flesh, he went on. Victoria? I said. Correct. Now is that time, Marcus. Once he does it again, this will be the last. He will be permanently infused with his new vessel, he answered, revealing his twisted, toothy smile. You? I asked, still feeling the throb in my head. Come now, Marcus. I've merely been a humble servant, ensuring everything was arranged properly for his rebirth. Lanius has always been interested in you. You recall the pages of the tome, yes? Who'd think that was with Lanius? I shook my head in disbelief. It didn't make sense. There was no way it could have been me. You're lying. That's impossible. If so, why me? Will you see, Marcus? Lanius sees all aspects of time, all possibilities. Out of everyone, he saw you to be the best candidate to lead to the outcome he desired. You should feel honored, he explained. I don't understand, I replied. You said he's always been using me, but I don't recall any of those times at all. Well, of course you don't, Marcus, he said, smiling. Each time Lanius removed your memory after transfer into your younger body. Believe it or not, we've already had this conversation before. I only recall because he allows me to. You see, I'm the one ensuring everything goes as planned accordingly. You'll go back as you've done before, but this time, it'll be for good. I'm sorry to say, though, what is left of Marcus Pale will be no more. I found myself shaking my head again. I couldn't believe it. Didn't want to believe it. Please, Marcus, he continued. Each time we go through this little charade, I try to give you a chance to let you willingly come forward. But as always, you fight it. How about switching it up for a change and give in? It is inevitable regardless, he finished. What will it be, Marcus? I remained in silence, trying to absorb everything. It was too much. How could it all possibly be true? There was no way of telling otherwise. It seemed like a lose-lose situation. I started to answer. You're full of shit, I said, rendering a light smirk. His eyes seemed to twitch with dissatisfaction. How very disappointing, he said, turning his back. I could see his hand move into his cloak. He turned around, producing a gun in his hand. He fired the weapon, missing me. I quickly threw myself to the ground, grabbing my own gun. I pointed and shot off a round just he did. His shot grazed my side, only piercing my cloak. My shot, however, had hit him in the leg. He fell to the ground. Immediately he proceeded to lift his gun, struggling to aim it at me. I walked over to him, keeping my own pointed at him. Standing over him, I held it to his face. He smiled at me before dropping his own in defeat. You think this hasn't already happened, Marcus? It's inevitable, he said. The smile grew wider on his face. I didn't answer and simply pulled back on the trigger, His body immediately went limp. I remained over him with the gun still pointing at it. I never thought killing someone would be so satisfying. I didn't like this thought, though. There was something about this place. Whatever it was, I was ready to leave it. Unexpectedly, I felt the same painful pulse from early flood my head. I fell to my knees, gripping my head. When I turned, I could see the creature crawl from the table, dragging its deformed, limp legs. It snarled at me, moving close in speed. I held the gun in my hand and pulled the trigger, but it only clicked. I repeated the action only to receive the same result. It was empty. Quickly, I reached over with my other hand and grabbed the Reverend's gun. Yet, it was too late. The thing pounced on me. Its slimy hands gripped my neck. I could feel its hot, putrid breath on my face and see pieces of flesh clung to its jagged teeth. I wanted to throw the damn thing off, but I could feel the pain in my head amplify. It was hard to describe, but I could feel its presence within my mind. It was like it was searching for something. It wasn't until the last minute that I could visually see what it had found. Immediately, we both were engulfed into a blinding light out of nowhere. When the light cleared, I found myself lying in something cold. When I stood to my feet, I realized that it was snow. There was snow everywhere. Where was I? I looked around, seeing cars covered in snow as well. Several buildings loomed around me, all with something in common: decorations. They all had wreaths and lights either on their doors or around the buildings. Christmas? How could that be? It was July. Something about this area was familiar, but I didn't know why. The building before me was fairly tall, maybe 4 stories. Something about it drew me towards it. Through the glass, I could see my reflection. I could see that horrifying mask over my face. How did it get back on my face? I also noticed both of the guns still in my hands. I can't describe it, but I felt lightheaded. I could hardly recall what I had been doing prior to arriving here. In fact, I didn't even remember where I got this cloak from. I felt the urge to enter the building. I tucked the guns away and entered. Inside, I noticed several closed doors along with a staircase to the side. This must have been an apartment building. I couldn't pull myself from this feeling, letting it take me to the stairs. I began climbing, passing more doors on each floor, each with their own set of wreaths or anything Christmas related. With each floor, I tried searching for some hint of why I was here. I continued upward until reaching the 3rd floor. I was led to a door on the left marked 3A. Why was I brought here? I felt my hand lift as if it had a mind of its own. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't gain control over it. It banged on the door. Inside, I could hear someone moving towards the entrance. Next, I felt my hand reach back into my cloak, pulling out the revolver. Fear filled my eyes. Why was I grabbing the gun? I wanted to warn the person inside not to open their door, but my mouth wouldn't obey either. To my horror, I listened as the bolt unlocked and the door opened. My eyes could not comprehend the sight before me. The person in front of me was my father. He looked very young, more so than the last time I saw him. But it was him. How was this possible? Without warning, my hand struck him across the face. Next, my leg kicked him back. The woman inside gave off an ear-splitting scream in shock. It was the young face of my real mother. She was alive, but how? The apartment was heavily decorated to suit the Christmas atmosphere. It had a tree nicely decorated with presents piled underneath. I couldn't help but feel a sense of familiarity to what was transpiring before me. Again, my hand moved without command, shutting the door and locking the bolt. It pointed the gun at my parents, fear engulfing their eyes. "Why are you doing this?" my father asked, gripping his head. "What do you want?" I wanted to answer but could not. To my side, I heard a soft voice. I looked over and saw a young child playing with a book. It was me. I was actually in the presence of my younger self. I felt a strong force vibrating through my head, feeling it filter out. It was odd, but it looked almost like the fumes of gasoline flowing towards my younger self. It suddenly hit me. I felt a partial memory return. I recalled the words of the Reverend. This was happening to me because of that thing, Lennius. It was inside me, controlling my actions. It needed to take over my younger self for its vessel. I could feel its presence vacating my body, watching it flood into my younger self. My parents probably couldn't see it. Only me. I couldn't let this happen. I was not about to become one with this thing for the rest of my life. Concentrating, I attempted to move my hand. The one with the gun was solid and unmovable. The finger in that hand began moving on its own accord. I could feel it tighten on the trigger. The gun was still aimed at my mother. Why was it doing this? Why was it trying to kill my mother in the process? I made every attempt to stop my hand, but it wouldn't listen. I was ready to give in until my mind had another lapse in memory. I recalled having a dream. It was similar to what was happening now, but slightly different though. I tried to focus, attempting to recall more of the dream. For some reason, it was so hard to do so. I didn't know why, but it felt necessary to remember it. More pieces began to come together. In the dream, I saw myself fire the gun, but it wasn't at my mother. No, I shot myself, the younger me. It was puzzling that I did this. Another piece of the dream came to me. There was a bright light, and in the light was a face. I could recall the face this time. It was the smiling face of my mother. She was completely encased in the light as if the source of it. At that moment, I understood everything. I knew what I needed to do. I attempted to concentrate on my other hand, focusing on the image of it moving to my command, hoping the thought would render it. I could gradually feel my control returning. Somehow, the more the creature left me, the more I gained feeling in my body. I concentrated on moving my arm, feeling its mobility. With it, I reached down into my cloak and felt around until I recognized the object. I pulled out the second gun, aiming it at my younger self. My mother before me let out a loud shriek when she saw this. I could feel parts of my arm wanting to drop the gun, but I fought against it, aiming at the child. The creature must have picked up on my plan because it started to flood images through my head again. This time they were of people that I had known or would come to know. My friends, my loved ones, everyone. It was like it was trying to get me to understand the consequences if I continued with my action. I could see its fumes attempting to pump faster into my younger body. Finally, I saw the last of them completely enter my younger self. My 1-year-old self stared at me innocently. This moment had made sense now. I could picture the dream that brought me into all of this. This foul creature had controlled me for the last time. All this time it had been me who had been the executioner of my own mother. I was the monster, the crazy loon that had broken in all those years ago. No, he made me that crazy loon. He altered time. I was the closest person to help him realize his plan. However, the creature probably saw in all the infinite possibilities of time that my mother was the only threat to its plans. I laughed to myself. It was ironic that even in death she found a way to warn me, providing an escape route. Lanius's own tearing through time and space and had backfired. In its own attempt to fulfill its ambition, it ended up creating its own demise. It couldn't stop the human spirit. It was powerless to love. My mother's interference was like what the Reverend had said verbatim, inevitable. I smiled to myself, squeezing back on the trigger. The bullet pierced through the child's skull, instantly dropping him. Now dead, I could feel the control of my body return. It was as if a heavy aura of weight lifted from me. Sighing deeply, I dropped the gun to the ground. Slowly, I removed the mask from my face, looking over at my parents. They were silent with eyes still fixated on their dead child. Finally, my mother turned her gaze to me. I smiled at her, watching her eyes grow wide at seeing my face. With tears forming in my eyes, I could feel a hint of pain growing across my forehead. Something warm began to run down my nose. My eyes looked deep into my mother's as I spoke several words. I'm sorry. I had to. I did you a favor. Forgive me.